the shadow of a centuries-old feud, Lord Vanderlyn bestowed upon his son, Maximilian Vanderlyn the 23rd, a mission of paramount importance to venture to Mars and resolve the enduring dispute with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Accompanied by the Lord's most faithful seneschal steward, Gregorius, the young scion infantryman embarked on this daunting journey, armed only with tales of the cult and a relentless determination to secure terms favorable to his father. After an endless voyage through the void's abyss, the remote, burnt scarlet orb emerged, a solitary drop of blood upon the vast, dark galactic tapestry. Its appearance, though seemingly innocuous, whispered tales of hidden menace and dread, a ruby harbinger of darkness nestled within the silence of space. As they throttled down the engines, the crimson landscape of Mars loomed larger, a foreboding expanse beneath skies choked by black smoke billowing from colossal industrial smokestacks. The horizon was ringed with factory complexes that glowed ominously red, flickering like sinister beacons in the Martian dusk. Their ship made its descent into the Martian spaceport's bustling heart, where mechanized lifters and cargo transporters swarmed, a vivid display of the planet's relentless industriousness. Upon disembarking, Maximilian and Gregorius navigated down a rust-corroded corridor towards a gargantuan security barrier embossed with a large, unsettling emblem of a skull within a cog. It rose with a mechanical snarl, only to slam shut with a resounding clang behind them, echoing like a death knell as they ventured into the depths of the Forge world. The air was thick with orange smog, rising from the uncountable choked lungs of the forge machine. Millions trudged along the main thruway, dragging heavy bionics that malfunctioned and sputtered along the smoot-stained road. They passed beneath vast archways that creaked under the weight of ceremonial cogs and the red banners of ancient Mars. Huge laud-hailers droned the Credo Omnissiah on repeat, drowning out the sound of shuffling feet and the thousand groans of failing flesh.
There is no truth in flesh, only betrayal. There is no strength in flesh, only weakness. There is no constancy in flesh, only decay. There is no certainty in flesh but death. There is no truth in flesh, only betrayal.
Maximilian watched from the viewing gantry, fighting back a cough. Through the orange haze of industry, the workers were blurred, their borders indistinct, as if they were all organs of one horrendous creature named the Forge. The Scion's hair was slick with a layer of grimy sweat, perspiration pouring down his face. He glanced to his guide, the tech priest Anki Gibil. The tech priest's upper face was replaced by rusting metal, 3 unblinking bionic eyes forming a triangle where her forehead should have been. Where the metal met her lower cheeks, the flesh was red, raw, and puckered, as if the skin rebelled against the intrusion of the machine. Maximilian hid a frown. It was impossible to tell what the tech priest was thinking. There was no expression in her red eyes, no human gesture in her unmoving square pose. He glanced back to the scene below, his mind still protesting at the sheer numbers he saw. It was impossible to see the individuality in each independent part. Impossible to recognize the humanity in each blurred face. Just cogs of a gigantic machine, turning and clicking into rusted place.
The flesh is weak.
All 3 of Anki Gibil's eyes were focused on the young scion. Maximilian chose not to rise to the contempt in the tech priest's voice. He steadied himself, resolving to show no emotion at all. He wasn't a fool. This was not a world of the Imperium. This hellhole belonged to the Adeptus Mechanicus. This world belonged to Mars. The tech priest smiled. Her few remaining teeth were black and rotten, her gums bleeding pus. She turned towards the descender lift, her red robes trailing dirt. Maximilian glanced to his father's seneschal, Gregorius. The old man still stared at the crowds below, his knuckles white where he gripped at the railing. When he noticed Maximilian's eyes upon him, he slowly turned, neither smiling nor grimacing. With the smallest of gestures, he nodded for the scion to follow the tech priest. Maximilian could feel the old man doddering behind them. Anki Gibil placed a wrinkled hand on a red, flashing cogitator rune, soothing it to a placid blue with a drone of incomprehensible binary. The descender lift shuddered into use, grinding through grime and soot as ancient cogs turned with creaking stiffness. Maximilian went to talk, but the noise of the descender lift was deafening, almost drowning out the maddening repetition of the Credo Omnissiah. He felt Gregorius's hand on his shoulder, the seneschal giving him a slight squeeze of support. Maximilian brushed him off with impatience. He was not a child anymore. He stumbled as the descender lift came to an abrupt stop. To his chagrin, both Gregorius and Anki Gibil remained steady. Without a glance back, the tech priest walked on. She moved with a heavy limp. Maximilian wondered if it was due to debilitating injury, age, or ill-fitting bionics. In any case, it was impossible to tell beneath the bulk of her oversized, grubby robes. Maximilian thought he could hear the sound of straining bionics, but even that was a guess. The sound of machinery whirring and clicking and fizzing was constant, assaulting them from every direction as they moved through the forge. He smoothed down his regalia, wrinkling his nose at the black stains that soiled the crisp blue of his family colors. One can't help but get dirty here, he mused.
Where are you taking us, Tech Priest?
You have seen the change of the shift, Lordling of the Imperium. Typically, this is all your organic brains remember of these visits, but this is a weakness of the flesh. This unit endeavors to correct you. Now, this unit shows you the workings of the blessed machine.
Are the laborers not part of those workings?
A facile observation that rests upon linguistic equivocation. This unit predicts that you understand her meaning.
Maximilian felt Gregorius's hand on his shoulder again. He shot his father's seneschal an angry glance.
I meant no offense, Tech Priest. I count myself fortunate to see the true workings of the machine.
Anki Gabil did not reply. They walked at a quick pace, despite the Tech Priest's omnipresent limp. Anki Gabil took them through winding maintenance corridors, the walls tight and hemming them to single file. Something about the sudden shift from immense space to close quarters produced a mounting claustrophobia, which soon exploded into agoraphobia when they exited into a huge hallway. The Scion took a deep breath, a stifling, dry heat burning at his throat. Humanity was not made to comprehend such impossible sizes. Meanwhile, Gregorius struggled to keep up. The old man wheezed and gasped, faltering by the minute.
Tech Priest, my companion tires. Perhaps we could arrange for transport.
The flesh is weak.
The Tech Priest did not amend her pace. In the maintenance corridors, they occasionally met another servant of the cult Mechanicus, a red-robed, shuffling figure that did not speak or look up as they pressed against the walls to let them pass. Maximilian remembered Gregorius's words before they had made the shuttle trip down to this inhuman, fume-clogged world.
You will think them impolitic and oblivious, but do not be fooled, young master. The Mechanicus have turned their strangeness into an art form. They understand imperial etiquette. They have weaponized it, using it as a bludgeon against us. Every rudeness is a test, designed to prove the weakness of our flesh. Do not fail their tests, Maximilian.
What of human decency? Are they not human?
They are human, yes. But they are Mechanicus first and foremost.
I cannot conceive how such a society could persist, let alone thrive, to live without humanity or rules of conduct. It is a wonder that Mars does not collapse into anarchy.
Oh, but they have their rules, young master. There is etiquette within the cult of Mars, every bit as complex and treacherous as in the imperial court. Some elements are obvious, to honor the machine, to praise the Omnissiah, but most is Martian mystery, quite incomprehensible to our own fleshy comprehension.
Maximilian had snorted at that, earning him a harsh glance from the seneschal.
You make them sound as bad as the witches of the Telepathica.
Yes, Maximilian, I do. The old seneschal was seriously lagging behind now.
They had weaved through maintenance tunnels and huge metal caverns for almost an hour. The heat had steadily intensified, the moisture of Maximilian's flesh rising as steam. His skin felt dry and flaky. Eventually, the tech priest stopped. They stood before a giant doorway, framed with peeling gold. Anki Gabil fell to her knees. Her arms stretched out as she chanted a binary dirge. A ripple of animalistic fear chilled Maximilian's blood. His heartbeat sped. The hairs on his arms stood on end. A cold flush clashed with the unbearable heat. Maximilian didn't understand why, but something in Anki Gabil's dirge spoke to a primal part of his soul, some primitive instinctual terror activated by the arrhythmic repetition of subsonic tones.
Will you stop that, please?
As soon as the words left his mouth, the door began to open, a great, creaking scrape of metal against metal. It hissed as scalding air poured out, sending Maximilian reeling. As it yawned open further, the Scion could see hellfire within, blaring, red-hot fire that reached high and licked at the blackened ceiling miles above. The Scion swayed, dizzy and blinded by the heat, nausea beating down on him, pressing through his eyes. He gasped, but found he could barely breathe. Through blurry eyes, he saw the tech priest silhouetted in a baleful halo of crimson fire. She turned, but Maximilian could not make out her features, just the maddening triangle red of 3 bionic eyes. Maximilian choked. He was dimly aware of having collapsed to the ground, his palms searing against the burning floor. Intuitively, he slowed his breathing, applying the defensive techniques taught to him by Master Venomite Meltis. He was tempted to purge, but swallowed back his vomit. His heart rate slowed. With every blink, he could see a little more, the tech priest appraising him, the legions of kneeling supplicants inside the chamber, the largest inferno he had ever seen, swallowing up the sky. As the air pressure stabilized, he could hear screaming.
Behold, the heart of the Forge Machine.
Maximilian forced himself to stand, the outer layer of flesh peeling from his palms. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to focus. If he squinted, he could see something around the flames, the glint of a force field straining to contain the immense fire. The blaze seemed to originate from a gaping cylindrical device in the ground. Some mile across and through strained eyes, Maximilian could see that the rippling heat was thirstily lapped up by an identical aperture in the ceiling. Anki Gabil was grinning, even as her lower face blistered and peeled.
Life is directed motion. The spirit is the spark of life. Flesh is fallible, but ritual honors the machine spirit. And to break with ritual is to break with faith.
I don't understand.
The heart of the Forge Machine consumes an average of 0.023 million units a day. Through ritual and sacrifice, the machine spirit is honored and endures.
Maximilian examined his red, raw hands.
Human sacrifice?
Yes,
Why did you show me this thing?
to correct the frailties of your flesh, Lordling of the Imperium, to help you understand.
This is an abomination.
The tech priest was silent. Maximilian glanced over his shoulder, seeing Gregorius standing at a distance. Even though the old man avoided the worst of the heat, he looked haggard, his skin steaming with sweat, black smudges staining his face. The Scion shook his head.
I would like to leave, Tech Priest.
As the Tech Priest led them away, Maximilian thought back on his conversation with Gregorius. He remembered frowning.
If they are as bad as the witches, then why are they tolerated?
For the same reason that the witches of the Telepathica are tolerated, young master, because the God Emperor needs them.
Maximilian had gone to scoff, but the old man had placed a hand on his wrist.
Put such thoughts out of your mind, Maximilian. Forget any notion of common humanity or compassion. You cannot risk such luxuries here.
Maximilian refocused. Anki Gabil had led them through another maze of maintenance tunnels and cavernous hallways, a blur of creaking gears and blackened cogs. The Scion felt dizzy, his body struggling to cope with the abrupt shifts in temperature and space. His mind was groggy, his mouth horribly dry. With a twinge of alarm, Maximilian realized that Gregorius was nowhere to be seen.
My father's seneschal.
This way. Lord Lin.
A blast of cold air sent Maximilian tottering. He realized that he was in the spaceport, dozens of shuttles landing and taking off every minute, a maddening frenzy of constant motion. Servitors unloaded and refueled vessels, overseen by red-robed adepts. Heavily augmented pilots sat in their cockpits, fizzing wires connecting the top of their spines to blinking cogitators. Imports of human cargo marched out in chains, dragged along by towering cybernetic Skitarii guards.
Your shuttle is being prepared for disembarkment. Wait here.
Maximilian barely registered Anki Gabil's words. He staggered backwards, supporting his weight against a row of fuel barrels. The sky was full of buzzing insects. No, they were shuttles, swarming in concentric circles waiting to land. The Scion blinked, getting out of the way, as a heavy servitor stomped towards him, reaching for a fuel barrel with its servo arm. The servitor was dwarfed by the barrel, but it shouldered the load without complaint, an ant lifting 10 times its own weight. The Scion watched it go, marveling at the scene.
Move, Imperial.
At a tech adept's warning, Maximilian dodged a line of trudging menials who dragged a huge, snaking fuel pipe. He went to apologize, but the tech adept simply walked on, directing his charges towards a shuttle double the size of the others. Maximilian stared, barely avoiding another crowd of workers coming in the opposite direction. He realized that he had lost sight of where he was told to wait. There were so many people and machines milling about, obeying some profound order he couldn't fathom. He tripped over a cable, sprawling to the ground. Instinctively, he went to catch his fall with his burned hands, letting loose a sharp hiss of agony from his parched lips. He groped at the floor, trying to find his wits and balance. A firm hand grabbed the back of his shirt and dragged him upwards.
Thank you.
The Skitarii stared back. It had no face, though Maximilian couldn't tell if what he saw were bionics or simply armor. A grated respirator for a nose and mouth, red-tinged goggles for eyes, all shadowed by a heavy red cowl. It loomed over the Scion, bulked out in a carapace cuirass, its arms bionic and inhumanly strong.
I seem to have lost... Wait, what are you doing?
The Skitarii grabbed Maximilian's wrist, almost breaking the bone as it yanked him forwards into a line of chained men and women. Before Maximilian could fully process what was happening, he was manacled and being dragged with the others.
Wait! No! This is a mistake! Listen to me!
A rush of terror brought back Maximilian's wits as they approached the edge of the spaceport. He glanced wildly about, looking for someone that could help him. Everyone seemed utterly oblivious to his cries, but he tried anyway, explaining, insulting, pleading.
Tech Priest! Tech Priest!
With a flood of relief, Maximilian saw Anki Gibil. He was suddenly glad of her distinctive triangle of eyes.
Tech Priest, help! Help me!
Anki Gibil stared back at him impassively.
No! Wait! Tech Priest! Tech Priest!
As the doors to the spaceport closed behind them, Maximilian saw a satisfied grin spread across Anki Gibil's lips.
Wait! No! Wait!
He started to hyperventilate.
Skitarii! Please! Skitarii! I am not supposed to be here! I am a Lord Scion of the Imperium! I am...
The Skitarii turned and delivered a sledgehammer uppercut to the Scion's chin. The blow was immense, slamming Maximilian's jaw onto his tongue and severing it in an instant. The Scion tried to scream, but only managed a gurgled cry of gushing blood. He vainly struggled, but he was hauled forwards, his tongue trampled by the line of people behind him. He could just about see it, pulped and abandoned on the grated floor. It was too much. Maximilian passed out. When he awoke, he was pinned upright to an X-shaped metal cross. The air was frigid, stinking of chemicals. The Scion felt groggy. He could feel where the blood had dried against his chin, his severed tongue aching in a steady, dull pulse. Purple bruises blossomed over his body. After a few beats, Maximilian realized he was naked. He tried to free himself, but he was clamped in place, struggling against steel. Maximilian tried to calm himself. Some time had elapsed, enough time for Gregorius to reach the spaceport and ask the necessary questions. Damn that old man, he thought. If he had just accepted bionics for his legs, this would never have happened. He tried to look around, but his neck was clamped in place. From what he could see, the room was small, almost like a cell. Its walls were cluttered with medical apparatus, a servo arm clamp on one side and a Medicae mechadendrite on the other. No one else seemed to be in the room with him. Gregorius will be here soon, Maximilian assured himself. It's almost over. He stared as a door opened. A servitor gazed blankly at him, struggling under the weight of a curved metal plate. Behind was a tech adept. Maximilian moaned in fear. His voice sounded strange without his tongue. The servitor approached with faltering steps. It might have been female once. There was something feminine about the tuft of dead hair that reached down to its shoulders from the right side of its scalp. Either way, it did not respond to Maximilian's muffled pleas, slamming the metal plate into his chest with crashing force. The tech adept stepped forward with an electro drill. Behind it, a line of servitors waited silently, carrying tools and bionics, gears and wires. Maximilian screamed as the tech adept drilled the metal plate into his body, feeling his skin corkscrew away as the nails were fixed to his shoulder blades and ribs. His vision swam in agony, returning to sharp focus as the wall-mounted Medicae mechadendrite injected him with a concoction of life-saving chems. He felt his blood swim from the holes the tech adept had made in him, running like lubricant between his flesh and the plate. Another servitor stepped forward, handing the tech adept an electrosaw before bowing back. It buzzed into life, slicing through the skin of Maximilian's shoulder before finding resistance at the bone. The scion howled, fighting wildly against his restraints. The wall-mounted servo arm pinned him down as his left arm ripped away, his underarm skin tearing and giving way to a splatter of blood. The next servitor entered, presenting a grubby bionic. The tech adept pinched at Maximilian's exposed nerve fibers, cleaning them of bone dust and skin as the blood flowed in steady bursts. The Medicae mechadendrite injected Maximilian again as the tech adept reverently took the bionic arm, chanting to the Omnissiah as it unspooled wiring from the augment's inner workings. With delicate metal hands, the tech adept wove the wires around the nerve fibers and soldered them together. As Maximilian shrieked, the tech adept fed the wires back into the bionic arm, positioned it against the scion's shoulder, and reached once more for the electro drill. Maximilian continued to howl. Some innermost portion of his mind urged him to speak, to tell the tech adept that there had been a mistake, but the pain was too great for him to manage anything but screams. He stared with horror at the bionic arm as the Medicae mechadendrite applied another dose of stim. It was an ugly thing too large for his frame, dragging him downwards against the clamps. It was a thing fit only for a menial wretch, a hideous, unspeakable thing. He convulsed as aluminum charge spasmed through his body. He spat fizzing blood on his metal chest. The tech adept applied the electrosaw to Maximilian's other arm. The sword bone left behind a white sheen of dust, shaded with crimson as his right arm tore away. Then the pinch, the white-hot agony of metal against nerve fibers, the soldering, the drill. Maximilian wheezed. Distantly, he realized he wasn't screaming anymore, his throat lacerated and useless. He tried to think. There was a name, someone who might still come, but it was hard to think. Hard to think past the pain and the animal part of his mind that screamed in tortured terror. It was like a secret, something that might still save the scion if he could only remember. A name. A name. The scion was dimly aware of intense pressure against his torso. The tech adept was attaching metal girders to the plate, building an exoskeleton to support the immense, ungainly weight of Maximilian's bionic arms. A sharp pain in Maximilian's neck signaled another stim injection. Another spasm of luminem sent him convulsing. He gaped down at his body, a scaffolding of bloody metal parts, inhuman, not his. Maximilian wanted to scream, but it hurt even to breathe. He suddenly had the absurd thought that this couldn't be real, that he was about to wake up, that this couldn't possibly be happening to him. Next, the tech adept took his legs. Shuffling servitors brought in the replacements, sooty, clunking things with exposed, rusted gears. Maximilian's eyes rolled back as the agony began anew. He didn't even notice when the tech adept castrated him with pincered calipers, his mutilated genitalia flopping limply to the blood-soaked ground. When it was finally over, another dose of stim jolted him into focus. The tech adept stood appraising him with cold green eyes. The scion could feel a tremendous weight dragging on his skin, a terrible new mass that pulled him towards the earth. He tried to look at the tech adept, but he could barely lift his head. He grunted, spitting blood, as the tech adept reached out with a hand and took him by the broken chin, inspecting him like a prize grox. A thin, winding mechadendrite unspooled from beneath the tech adept's robes, uncoiling towards the Scion's face. This isn't real, Maximilian thought. This can't be. The thin mechadendrite burrowed up Maximilian's right nostril, finding the young Scion's frontal cortex. With a series of small snips, the tech adept severed the cortex from the rest of the brain, and Maximilian never thought in words again.
This unit apologizes. This is an abomination.
I want to see him.
As you wish, Seneschal.
Gregorius sighed, feeling it travel through his entire body. He felt every bit of his 200 years. Anki Gabil had already told him the bad news. Not just bad news, a tragedy, a calamity. Lord and Lady Vanderlyn would be devastated. Gregorius was devastated. He felt tears on his face. He had told Lord Vanderlyn that the boy was not ready. The Seneschal did not doubt that the young Scion had made some mistake. The boy was too proud, too hot-headed, rushing off without the Seneschal, allowing himself to be lured away by the Mechanicus. Who knows what Maximilian had said? Something had happened. The Seneschal was certain of it. Gregorius sighed again. Anki Gabil seemed positively gloating. It was the most emotion she had ever shown him. The Seneschal knew that the tech priest could have hidden her emotions if she'd wished. The half-aborted smile on her lips was meant to be seen. Beware the wrath of the Adeptus Mechanicus. As a courtesy, Anki Gabil had arranged transport to the servitization chambers. Gregorius knew that he should have had fitted bionic locomotion years ago, but he'd always hated the idea. After all, he knew the creatures that would provide his augmentation. Monsters. He had tried to warn the boy. He had tried to warn him, but Maximilian had not listened.
Lord Vanderlyn will not be pleased.
This unit understands and shall offer compensation.
Compensation won't return him his son.
If Lord Vanderlyn would like, this unit will return to him his son.
Gregorius fell silent. He knew that the tech priest was baiting him. It was a message for Lord Vanderlyn. If not for that message, and the necessity of a messenger, Gregorius would already be dead. The Mechanicus does not fear imperial nobility.
Again, this unit apologizes.
Thank you, tech priest.
Just this way.
They had separated Maximilian from the other new servitors, keeping him in the cell where they had disfigured him. The air was cold, formaldehyde stinging the seneschal's nostrils. Gregorius braced himself. Nonetheless, when the door opened, he fell into sobs. The boy's nose was swollen where lobotomizing mechadendrites had mutilated his brain. His mouth dribbled blood, his teeth cracked and broken. They had removed his scalp and affixed heavy blocks of metal, sending his head bobbing beneath the weight.
Oh God, Emperor.
The servitor slowly lifted its head. They had left his eyes intact. The bright blue had dulled to a clouded, milky ocean, but they were still, undeniably, Maximilian's eyes. The servitor groaned. It was Maximilian's voice, but it was slurred and mechanical.
Maximilian, what have they done to you?
Later, Gregorius would tell himself that it was a lie, a trick of his trauma or of his own exhaustion. And yet, in that moment, he was certain of what he saw. The boy's white blue eyes, misty, with terrified tears.